It's not something you may immediately recognize, nor is it something most Americans even know exists. Yet it's set to define internet access for millions in this country. This is the National Broadband Map, a framework of connectivity in the United States that will serve as the Biden administration's guide to close the digital divide. The digital divide is a term that defines the millions of people without access to high-speed internet connectivity.
The sad truth is that the FCC does not know with precision where those areas are.
Here in the US, President Biden plans to spend over $65 billion to change that through a mix of deployment and digital equity efforts.
We have a chance to make generational change with these funds.
It's the most expensive and expansive plan to close the digital divide to date, and its success will depend on having an accurate national broadband map.
Quite frankly, you look at that map, it looks like Nebraska's got the best internet in the entire world.
The $45 billion that Congress appropriated for the broadband deployment may be wasted.
The Biden administration launched its Internet for All efforts in November 2021, when President Biden signed his $1 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. That law established the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, or BEAD, which sets aside nearly $43 billion for states and territories to distribute as broadband infrastructure grants to close their digital divides. The BEAD program is being administered by the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA. According to BEAD rules, each state is guaranteed $100 million from that program. The rest of their BEAD funding will be allocated based on need, according to their number of unserved locations or locations without high-speed internet access, information that will come from the new National Broadband Map. But broadband mapping in the US has historically been far from perfect. For some context, let's go back to the beginning. The first National Broadband Map was launched under the Obama administration in 2011.
Every community will be able to make the investments they need.
But the first National Broadband Map relied on census tract data from internet providers to determine the status of service. What resulted was an inaccurate picture of internet access, where one connected household in a census tract could lead to the entire area being defined as served, causing there to be an overstatement of internet connectivity across the country. That's why, in 2020, Congress passed the Broadband Data Act, requiring the FCC to fix its data collection process and launch a new national broadband map, which brings us to today.
This collection will allow us to take steps to develop a nationwide map that will have unprecedented detail.
Rather than relying on census tracts, the new FCC map uses data at the physical location level. That means analyzing structures like individual homes and apartment buildings. CostQuest is the firm behind the FCC's new Broadband Serviceable Location Fabric, or the map of locations across the country that have or need broadband access.
So we've created a database of 114 million or so building footprints in the US. Every ISP provider has to report to the FCC which of those locations they provide broadband service to, what technology and what speed. The FCC will then, from that data, from about 3,500 providers, they will then identify which locations are unserved, so under 25.3 for broadband, and which locations are underserved, so under 120.
Working with CostQuest, the FCC started to collect service provider data for the fabric last June, and they released a first draft version of the map in the fall. Despite the new data collection process, early versions of the updated FCC map have been met with a flood of criticism.
They don't account all the units of apartment buildings or trailer parks, but they're also not counting all of the things nowadays that we use broadband for. They're not counting water pumps and, electric substations.
Other problems with the map include the over-reliance on service providers to claim where there is and isn't coverage. Critics say that some ISPs are incentivized to exaggerate their coverage capabilities for marketing reasons or to defend their service territories from federally funded competition.
If you're in Iowa where it's flat as a pancake, they know who they can serve. But most of the country, they don't know if they can serve you until they send a guy out, he climbs on your roof and he goes, yes or no. So they don't know if you can get it or not. So how could they possibly map if you can get it or not?
In other cases, it's difficult, especially for smaller ISPs, to accurately provide all of the information that's being requested.
I think there are sometimes cases where they're accidentally overstating.
That's Light Reading's editor-in-chief, Phil Harvey. He points out that physical infrastructure of a service provider's network is often antiquated, updated for modern times with add-ons and quick fixes.
But is it really good broadband service The answer is you have to kind of go and see.
For all of those reasons, errors with the new broadband map were to be expected. That's why the FCC opened up a challenge process where service providers, local governments, and for a short period of time, the general public could submit challenges to the map's coverage data. The FCC is now using that challenge data to improve the map before the NTIA allocates each state's BEAD funding amounts this June.
Hundreds of millions of dollars are at stake.
And it would be a complete undermining of the law if the NTIA were to move forward with maps that had not been subject to that rigorous review.
In response to concerns about the map from Congress, FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel released a statement saying that CostQuest has invested significant resources since the release of the first version of the fabric to undertake manual review above and beyond the baseline methodology to identify additional broadband serviceable locations. She also said that version 2 of the map will address most, if not all, of the outstanding concerns. In the meantime, some states are hiring consultants to carry out state-level broadband mapping to better guide how they'll spend their BEAD funds.
So I don't think the maps will have as big of an influence. The Congress only said the maps had to be used to give the money away. They didn't say it have to be used in the grant process. So again, the problem is there's probably 20 states who don't have a state broadband map. They're going to have a much bigger challenge.
The NTIA will still need to approve state BEAD plans, and going forward, it will be important to have a clear national picture of how well BEAD and other federal broadband programs are working, which brings us back to the National Broadband Map, a document that will strongly define the future of connectivity in the United States. Will the new FCC map get us closer to closing the digital divide, and can such a complex data project ever show a clear picture of connectivity in the United States? It's a story that we'll continue to watch here on Light Reading.